Welcome back to It Tastes Like Burning. This is Matt.
This Jesse.
And if you ever feel like talking to us or giving us recommendations, concerns, or possible legal ramifications, you can always reach out to us at ittasteslikeburningcast@gmail.com. You can find us on YouTube at It Tastes Like Burning. I do recommend adding podcast in that search. You'll see a couple of live streams that we've done, a lot of our audios posted there. And then don't forget to like, click, subscribe, remind, and all that good stuff there on the old YouTubes. And if you have the opportunity to ever leave a review or comment, it's always really appreciated. And lastly, you can always find us on Patreon at It Tastes Like Burning. And we'll send you some stickers and make sure we get you on the old podcast.
Yeah, there's kind of two ways to get stickers, right? You either find us in the wild, and hopefully we've got some on us. We gave away a bunch of stickers this weekend.
Yes, we did.
Or you join the Patreon and you don't have to track us down and find out what part of Texas we're standing in at the moment to get that sticker. So, uh, jump on there. We appreciate it. Patrons help us make this better, uh, which is a good thing, right?
I generally think so.
Yeah. So, uh, Matt and I did a lot of traveling this weekend. We bounced all over North Texas and kind of in our area, hitting a couple of SFFMA district meetings that were in our district.
Yep. District 9 and District 10.
10. Yeah.
We are District 16.
So the state's broken up into 16 districts, and these districts have their own meetings, sometimes once a year, sometimes twice a year. I think that District 10 had multiple, like 3 or 4 meetings. Like they were discussing having a meeting in June or July or something. So that's they're a little more heavy into the meetings than we are. We're that twice a year kind of bunch. But the interesting thing was to see how, although we're all doing the same thing, right? We're electing officers, we're doing these things at these meetings that are kind of the required items, let's call it, but how they're different takes on the different meetings and how their different places do different things.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's still just a bunch of firefighters getting together and discussing business. But oddly enough, everyone does that a little different.
Right. And it was interesting for me to see, like, 9 District 9 has a thing called the firefighter gauntlet. So it's like a firefighter challenge, kind of a shortened version that you can run uh pretty quick and easy, right? It
Right.
they built some props to make this challenge, and they've ran it at the state convention a couple years. It'll be back this year. It's pretty popular event that just showcases some skills and carrying stuff and dragging a dummy and
Hose
hose
drag,
drag and just some of the
little
things.
swinging of an axe.
Yeah, it's really good little friendly competition. But that was a big part of their meeting, was that competition and that camaraderie that kind of creates, and rivalry and competition that spurs people to be better.
Right.
And which is a stark contrast from ours, which is just basically a training event, right?
Right.
We focus on hours and hours of training and that part of it. They have this competition part of it, and the other district has a meeting and a meal.
Right. The both districts compared to ours, theirs are a lot more seeped in tradition, history, and uh oh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Pageantry is one word, but really the reason that their structure of their meetings are so different than ours, because our meetings pretty informal. It's when we have the meeting, it's district business, bam bam, get it done, and move on, to allow people to network and talk and eat lunch and then get back out on the training field. And I think the difference is that our district was just so dead. And when we finally decided to bring it back and make it something, it had been useless and gone for so long that no one even really put time, energy, or effort into what should be the structure of this
Yeah,
thing.
what are the traditions that we need to observe? Like we had none of that. So it was
Now, no,
just
our district meeting is almost a mirror copy of what our business meetings are
perfect.
for our organization. Um, and I mean, and it is these other departments. They had a nice little memorial for their members, memorial that had passed, members that had passed. Uh, I mean, I thought that was particularly really awesome. A good extra touch there. Um, and then again, it was just ours is more backyard picnic, and theirs more of a black tie affair.
Yeah, it was interesting, and I came from a different part of the state and had the memorial service and all that, so I kind of knew all that stuff was. it- I hate to say a requirement. It wasn't a requirement of us to do, but that's the norm. That's the accepted norm. Well, we didn't. We were so far out of everything that we didn't conform to any norms. We chose what we wanted to do and made it happen. And I think it's interesting in kind of retrospect, what does that mean? What did that mean for what we have going on and what they have going on? It's very interesting that our attendance is quite a bit higher.
Well, right. Um, I mean, it's not good, bad, or indifferent. It's just a completely different take on how you want to organize and run your meetings. I know of another district in Texas that's a very old school, and they have a very large meeting.
Absolutely huge turnout. Yeah.
So it's not just flavor of the day, and you can't blame the children. It's not a Gen Z thing. Uh, it really does just boil down to the organizers and just how much blood, sweat, and tears that you're willing to really pour into what's either an afterthought on a calendar or a main event for your organization. And I know for us, and it's because we are so heavily training centric, that it's really not that big of a surprise that our district meeting is an afterthought to the training that everyone's going to be receiving.
Right. Yeah, they show up for training, we force them into a meeting,
Right.
basically.
So we basically trick them into, do you want a free cookie?
Yeah,
We
got
have
some
punch and pie in there, and then the door doesn't have a doorknob on the way
right.
out.
Yeah,
So,
weird that we have that meeting in a van and it says free candy on it,
yeah.
but it's interesting. It's a different take. I will tell you that I think we do lose some. We lose that we lose anything. We miss the opportunity to do things like that memorial that I think are good things that we probably should consider doing and adding into what we're doing and
Well, and I was thinking
but
that,
ignorance is bliss, right? We don't know that these things are the norm, so wh- how would we have known that? Why would we have thought to do that? And that, you can fault us for it or whatever, but literally you don't know what you don't know. And for the majority of us starting out in this deal, uh, even though I'd been to some previous meetings, I didn't want to constrain what we were doing to a thought process that was someone else's idea of what needed to happen.
right, right. So, along those lines, I was thinking about the way maybe we do a memorial and definitely give a heads up to the attending departments beforehand.
Hmm.
But instead of just collecting names on a list and doing a bell service or a memorial wreath, maybe we just have the attending departments give their uh it's basically an update on the members that have passed with the organization.
Yeah. Or maybe a memorial wall, or
Right.
and put some names or pictures on a wall, or something,
Something.
right? I don't think we have to live into the constraints of what everybody else is doing, but I also think that we're not necessarily 100% right 100% of the time.
No.
We're basically flew by the seat of our pants.
I think the kicker is just add your own personal flair to it.
Right.
To me, at
Yeah.
least in my rat brain, that's how I look at it. Now, I will say this. I think the one reason that we're crushing comparatively is because our meetings have training.
Yeah. I think training is the draw. I think that flashover chamber's a big part of that draw that brings the folks to the events. I think at this day and age, because a lot of the training that was available to departments, uh, free training. Now there's still stuff you can go pay for all over the place, but a lot of that free training and a lot of that stuff hasn't completely recovered from 2020. Yeah,
Right.
I'm going to use that word, 2020, when everything shut down, and it it's hard to kind of kick some of that stuff in the butt and make it start happening. So that lends it to be a struggle to get it back going. Like whatever whoever had going before is having difficulty getting that back going again. And we heard that up there in 10, that they wanted to get training back going, and they were looking for ways to get that worked out to get training back into their rhythm of their meeting, and have, you know, for them it was probably some afternoon training classes, maybe some half day stuff after the meeting and the meal for lunch, but for everybody else it's kind of the way you shake it. I mean, the Panhandle still has their events 2 days long, with pumper races and hose races and dinners and dances and meetings, and it's a big elaborate event that takes tons and tons of effort to set up, but it's huge, and there's high attendance, and it's what everybody in that district is wanting out of that meeting. And I think that's kind of the important thing, is to listen to the folks that you're serving and give them what they want.
Right. Novel concept.
Yeah. And I think we see that on the state level, and Dan Kramer, the executive director, talked about that, and with the membership surveys and stuff like that, that's what shapes what you do, because that's what the membership wants. And truly, in the state level, the district level, or down to the department level, like, you have to take the input of the members, because the members are the organization. The members are the fire department's not the building, and it's not the trucks. It's the people. The people are the asset that matters.
Yeah.
And
Period.
and if you're not relying on giving them something that they can sink their teeth in, or something that they want, whatever that is, you're you're not really an effective leader at that point.
Right. Probably the only 2 cents I'd have to really add to that is be careful. This is my very, very biased opinion. Be careful continuing to do something because that's how you want it done, or view it that it needs to be done that way, or because that's how we've always done it, but no one else appreciates it. So just be mindful of you're trying to have, and this is even true within your own organization. If you're trying to increase participation, uh, have something that the people are asking for instead of just, well, we've always done it this way. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of change to help bring a little bit of life into an old cause.
Right. And the cause is still there and the cause is still noble and the purpose of it is very important, right? The premise of the organization and the purpose of the organization is of utmost importance. It's super important to these member departments to have the resources that membership into these things brings. So they've got to, the more the merrier is just fact. The more people you can get in the door, whether it's for a meeting like that or a training event or into your department to end up being a butt in a seat in a truck, the more the merrier. You've got it's a numbers thing, right?
Right.
So I I saw the gauntlet thing as one of those things that's just, it created involvement and brought people to the event to be a part of what was going on, and it to me that was worth the time, energy, and effort for a lot of folks there to show up for.
Well, right. And I mean, this gauntlet, the purpose of it is to be a opportunity for you to brag on your physical fitness.
Yep.
Well, let's take just a little more serious look at that. Physical fitness today in the fire service is a real and legitimate thing. 50 years ago, it wasn't. Not what it is today. So, I mean, it would make sense to me for someone that has uh, a setup, for lack of better words, a physical fitness and bragging rights competition that oddly enough, everyone under the age of 30 flocks to it. Now, believe it or not, when you start getting to the 40, 50, and 60-year olds, they have no problem standing off to the side and talking about how they couldn't do that anymore or how awesome that would be to try and do that, but my knee hurts really bad and I'm not.
Right.
So I see value in that. And the fact of the matter is that it still ultimately achieves the exact same goal of just building camaraderie across people and across departments. I think it's perfect. The other highlight of it is quite frankly, it's cheap.
Yes. Yeah. So talking about networking and meeting other departments, and that's one of the main driving forces behind this podcast. Like we talk about what we do and what we have successes with and what we have failures with all the time. But we're doing this so that we can gain knowledge and perspective from other people. And that's why a lot of times we have guests, right? So we get these other folks in here to talk about stuff to get that third party perspective on what we're doing or to dive down the rabbit hole on what they're doing or share ideas that makes the whole fire service better.
Yeah, I for one truly believe that there's no reason in the world for for us to reinvent the wheel when someone else has already done it and you just need to steal their idea or borrow it.
Right.
I mean, that's probably the single greatest advantage of reaching out to other organizations completely new. I've never talked to these previous, I don't know how many there were, 60 departments. I've never talked to them. I've never had any interaction with them. I've never seen them in my neck of the woods, and they've never ventured into mine.
Yeah.
Uh, and yet, alls I did is walk away with about 500 really good ideas or things to look at or consider or wish for, or maybe even go as far as to implement and develop, or at least continue to have the discussion. And then, arguably enough, probably the greatest benefit of it is that I now have contact somewhere else.
Right.
And, quite frankly, world's a big place. Sure is nice to know someone, even if you're not from that area.
Yeah. And just on a human level, right? It it makes us more human. It keeps us in touch with our fellow man to hopefully make us better people in general because we kind of dive down these rabbit holes and we talk shop, which is what we're doing now, but we we get that human interaction that keeps us from being robots. And we see guys that get off on that island on their own and they don't interact with other departments or play well with others, and they end up non-human almost. They get so calloused or so set in what they're doing as being the fact and the gospel truth that they're impervious to criticism or growth at that point. And it's sad that you see that in different parts of the world, in different agencies, but it happens and it's self-inflicted.
Well, the other problem with that is that when you put yourself on an island, you're only exposed to your own ideas, and sooner or later, even the bad ideas sound like good ideas because at least they're different.
Well, and it's all you have.
And it's all you have. You have no perspective. You have no one to bounce anything off of. And it also just reference. I mean, is if your department refuses to only respond emergent by unicycle and everyone else is using a bicycle, I wonder why. I mean, is there a reason that we're the only ones doing this? I mean, I know it's a stupid analogy, but it proves the point. And if all you know is unicycles and you've never gone out and seen anything else, well, then that's it. You
Yeah.
don't actually realize that it's actually a trillion times easier with this other piece of equipment.
And,
And that carries across all facets of our organizations.
and there's lots of talk and how resistive the fire service is to change. That's a talking point that is just bellowed out of tons of publications, tons of speakers, but we're not completely resistant to change. We're not still using the buckets and the horses, but we hold on to certain things like just traditions and stuff that may or may not be pertinent for what we're doing today.
Or interesting.
You know,
I mean, there's a certain part of that too, where your membership has to actually enjoy being on the organization.
right,
And if they don't enjoy being on the organization, then a question needs to be asked. Why?
right.
And if that question is terrifying to you, or even worse, you refuse to even acknowledge the question exists, or that that person's flawed for thinking that way.
Well, they're just all lazy, man.
Right. Yeah, that's what it is. They're all lazy, they're useless, and they just don't know what it's like and how much harder it was for us so much longer ago.
Yeah,
Yeah. I wish it was oh so easy.
yeah. No, it's definitely not that easy. And what we notice and what we see are there's truly people that are wanting to grow and be better and have more and be more skilled and have a greater toolbox of stuff to be able to do to help and support their public and frankly be the asset to their community that the community expects them to be, right?
Right.
And sometimes those guys get overshadowed by all the chatter out there that volunteerism's going away and that nobody wants to do this. And no, there's tons of people that want to do this. They most of the time they just don't know how to take that first step. That first step is the one that keeps them away.
Well, and we were talking about this ad nauseum over the last 2 days is how good are you at messaging and communicating? I mean, let's be honest about that. How many people in your community know you're volunteer?
Yeah,
How many people care? Why should they care? If you can't have a realistic gut check answer to that, um, life will be continually very difficult for you, and vice versa. If you're not willing to consider options at how to make the organization appealing to the outside community, then you will also continue to have a very long and difficult life.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's the perspective is crazy, and it's not, we tend to put people in this young guy, old guy
Hmm.
boxes, and the young guys don't want to do the thing right, and the old guys don't want any of the new guys around, and the list goes on and on and on of all these things. But I see old guys and new guys looking for change and looking for growth, and it's not just this demographics no good and gone, and they're ruining everything. It's just pockets of resistance or failure to want to grow, and it's the growth is wanted by old and new and young and old, right?
Generally, when you start to have the discussion beyond the meet and greet, yes, oddly enough, everyone's in agreement that they want to see their organization continue to grow, maybe even thrive, and ultimately become self sustaining.
Yeah,
Now, how to get there, eh, that's a discussion.
that's a long windy path, right?
But generally, I found that everyone wants that. So, yeah, it's one of those things that it's the power of communicating and the power of networking. It's really only a benefit. It's not really a bad thing in any capacity. Um, there's always something to learn. There's always someone that has a possible solution or something to think about or consideration. And then also at the end of it, you may just inadvertently stumble into someone that might be a great help to you and your organization, or vice versa.
Yeah, they have that secret woodchuck answer that you've been searching for a long time. Because I think we might have ran into one of those.
Right.
And,
Yeah.
so I I know from our perspective, most of the time we think we're right, and we tend to. I wouldn't want to say that we talk ourselves up a lot, right? We're not bragging, so to speak, but we talk about the good things that we see as good that we're doing all the time, and we tend to forget about the good things that others are doing as much as we talk about what we're doing. And I mean, we're literally here on the podcast to talk about stuff. That's what we're here for. So we we talk about us a lot because we know about us. It's not meant to be a bragging thing. It's meant to be a perspective thing. And I just wanted to throw that out there because I could see how we could come off as boastful sometimes. But yeah, we've got a lot to be proud of, so we should talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, well, Christ, if you want, you can send us an email and we'll rattle on for hours about how terrible we are if that's what you want.
Yeah,
Uh, Realistically, I don't see any real benefit of that, but
yeah.
if that's what the people want, then that's what we'll do.
No, we won't give them that. Not a chance. But that's the point of the podcast is to share the good. Sometimes we share the bad. Sometimes it's just meh. It doesn't not good or bad. It's just a perspective. And definitely thrilled that we made this journeys this weekend to take the time out of our schedules to go to these places, to meet these folks, to engage with them and learn what we learned.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm not afraid to admit that there's a lot I don't know.
I'll tell you one thing that came up through the course of the weekend. We were sitting at a table for dinner last night with a guy that had an interesting perspective about a problem that we see that we know is a problem we have. And the conversation came up about how, in his eyes, a lot of departments struggle with accountability.
Right.
And openly we admit, yes, we are one of those departments. We struggle with accountability. We know the importance of it. We understand what it means to do a good job with accountability, but we still fall short and not get it done to the standard that it should be done to.
Right.
And so he began telling his story and why he thought it was important. And it was moving, very moving story. And I'll let Matt kind of run through because it's a local story in our general area of an event that happened. And I'll let Matt run through that event, and we'll kind of talk a little bit about the importance of this.
So it's a shame on me. I don't know the exact date.
It was in '99, I believe.
Yeah, I was gonna say 90, 96, 99, somewhere in there. It's 90s. And it was a church fire. Um, and it went bad. Uh, three men died on that call. And part of the problem that they had is that they didn't know who they knew they had firefighters down, but they didn't know who they were. And it wasn't a 5, 15, 40-minute fix. They ended up having to call wives and girlfriends to do an accountability, and resulted in sending people back to the stations to see who trucks were there and whose gear was gone. And it took about an hour and a half for them to actually determine who the three were. Um, and talking to this man, um, he was on one of the departments. I mean, he knew these people, knew them, and we don't know this guy. It's the first time we've ever met. First, yeah, like I said, this is the first time we've ever seen him. Great dude. I have nothing but great things to say about him and his company. And it's oh, we're what? Close to 25 years later.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you, that guy, the day of that call, that guy could tell you what the air tasted like that day. He could tell you what he was seeing, and you could see the call on him 25 years later. And it was a powerful and emotional message. Um and it was right in the feels is what it was. Particularly because we know that we're having a problem with accountability, and we know that we have to improve on it. And we're taking significant steps to help increase our much better management of that. Um, but uh, the discussion coming off of that call, me and Jesse were talking later about this, and I think the reason the shock to me is that what I thought was an internal problem, and
Very
maybe
local.
of a county problem proximal to us, turns out no. I mean, this guy, he doesn't know our county. He doesn't know departments in our county. He doesn't know chiefs in our county. And yet he just straight out called. And he does. He works with the in the fire service is a rep and vendor. Um and he straight out called that he's just shocked at how lax everyone is getting with accountability. And it did. It caught me off guard. I wasn't really prepared to hear that, because I am thinking it's a local internal problem, and at the bare minimum, it's a pretty significant regional problem. Um, and the only thing that we can put our thumb on, at least me, is complacency. The fact of the matter is that this area has not had a firefighter fatality uh, from a structure fire that I know of. Now, I'm sure there's been one or two, uh, but in this area, and particularly very local, we've never had one. We've had injuries, we've had some occasional close call, but nothing catastrophic or serious and resulted in death. And I put it on just complacency across the board for everyone.
Right. And so the lesson coming out of that is like it matters. Like this stuff matters a lot. And sometimes we don't put the weight on the things that should get more attention than what we're giving them.
Right.
And I know it lit a fire in me to try to get things done faster towards moving to a better system, faster towards doing the right job of accountability, not just for me, but not just my department, but for those around us and the wives and the families of all these people that are
Yeah,
fighting these
dependent.
fires, right? The dependents of these people that are doing this job because it's hard enough to ask people to take the time away from their family to turn around and take all the time away from their family
Right. Permanently.
permanently, correct. And I I think that's something that we should shine a light on this problem. Uh, at least in our region, we have a lot of listeners that are in the North Texas region of Texas, and uh, good group of folks listening to us in this area. And I I know that statewide, globally, nationally, there's folks listening to this story, and I hope that if you're realizing that you're not taking care of the accountability piece of the incident management, that you're going to at least reflect on it enough to think about doing something about it. Try to make it better.
Right. Well, something that I always tell people, and it's direct relation to being chief, is that the chief has one job, and it is to make the right decision in regards to the organization every time. That is why you're there. That is your job, is to make the right decision for the organization. And the organization's comprised of the membership. So if you're making the right decision for the organization, you're making the right decision for the membership. And yet we have a serious problem.
Yeah,
And it's just we have to address it. We have to. Can't.
yeah, and I think it roots back to the complacency, but
Mhm.
it it's a little more than that because it's there was a time, and it was a lot closer to the time of that call, right? That that when things are fresh on people's mind, and 9/11 was a good example of that, where it became apparent that you needed to really do a good job with accountability, right? There's these events that are happening where you don't know who's there, you don't know who died, you don't know where Billy Bob is, you don't know any of these things, and you got to figure it out. And
I think it's an extreme example, but I think West Texas
West
also
is also a good example of that
had
in that same kind of time frame.
had pretty serious problem with that there. I mean, don't get me wrong, 9/11's extreme, West Texas is extreme, but the fact of the matter is that policy and protocol comes from events written in blood,
Yeah,
and you can't forget those events and why those determinations were made that, hey, we should probably be
yeah,
doing this.
yeah,
So, because we can be all sunshine and roses and be as ultimately positive as possible. But 9/11 would have been something that you would have been unprepared for, but it was a response, an event that those crews had to respond to. West Texas, same thing. And there's multiple other major events like that. There's only so much that you can pre-plan and prepare for, and there's times when you just got to show up. And sometimes those calls go bad. They
Yeah.
just do.
Yeah, and it's literally there's no way to predict it. I mean, there was no way to predict 9/11. There was no way to predict West.
No.
Like it, to go too deep and knowing that you're going too deep for a lost cause is blatant stupidity, right?
Right.
But the unexpected is still the unexpected, and there's no way to predict that. I take a renewed stance to try to solve this problem and fix it and get everybody, and it's a training issue, right? Everything that you're going to fix goes back to training, right? So we're going to have to structure our training to ingrain this to become habit again. It was habit at one point in time. It can be habit again. We all we all form and lose habits all the time. And this habit has just gone by the wayside, and the time is now to get that back rolling.
Yeah. It's a good cause because everyone can benefit from it.
Yeah. And evidently we're not the only ones,
Nope.
which is oddly enough something we've realized. We think we figured something out, or we think we have this problem or this solution that's we've stumbled across, but turns out we're rarely the only ones with that problem or solution. There's usually another group out there, another department somewhere that stumbled into the same thing as we did, and the hopes is we kind of communicate that so that maybe somebody doesn't have to go through the school of hard knocks to figure this out. Maybe they can learn from our mistakes and successes.
Right. Or, God forbid, tragedy.
Right. Yeah,
So,
we can knock on wood we haven't had that tragedy yet, but it's just a ticking time bomb.
yeah. Do you have anything else?
No, that was kind of what I wanted to get out there and talk about.
Awesome. I think the paint fumes in this booth are about to kill me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, thanks to whoever painted in the back shop.
Yeah. We're gonna have to hold a bag over their head and spray paint in there and see how much they like it.
Yeah, it's awesome.
This is Matt.
This Jesse.
Have a good evening.
Yep.